We kindly request that you refrain from asking us to cancel our plans again. My mother raised her voice, expressing her frustration about the Elton John tickets we had secured months ago. Her words resonating throughout my hospital room. I remained in a state of shock, gripping my phone with unsteady hands. On Christmas Eve at Las Vegas Medical Center, I was accompanied by my 2-year-old twins, Ethan and Emily, who were playing quietly in the corner. While a nurse named Valerie attended to my vitals, I was experiencing severe abdominal pain, akin to a knife twisting within me. However, the indifference displayed on my mother's face during our video call was even more painful. My name is Natasha Wilson. As a 33-year-old, I have often experienced a sense of being overlooked within my own family. My younger sister, Jessica, has consistently been regarded as the favored child, receiving unwavering approval from our parents. In contrast, I struggled to secure their support even during a critical time, such as when I required emergency surgery due to complications following my husband's passing 6 months ago. And they were unable to care for their only grandchildren during that period. The medical professionals identified internal bleeding that necessitated urgent intervention. However, my parents prioritized their concert tickets and the celebration of Christmas Eve with Jessica. When I ultimately sought their assistance after exploring all other alternatives, my father's response was more painful than any surgical instrument. You're becoming a real nuisance and burden. Natasha, we are now in retirement and believe it is important to enjoy this phase of our lives without ongoing challenges. I have been providing financial support to my parents since they opted for early retirement 3 years ago. Each month, I consistently provided $2,500 to assist with their mortgage and expenses. Even following James's passing, this support stemmed from a sense of love and obligation, as I believed in the importance of families supporting one another. In retrospect, I realize the naivety of my actions. As I quietly shed tears onto the hospital blanket, Valerie offered a gentle squeeze to my shoulder. My friend Olivia, a professional nanny with expertise in childhood trauma, is available to assist. Let me call her for you, she suggested, her compassion standing in sharp contrast to my parents' indifference. The twins were still too young to comprehend the situation. They had already experienced the loss of their father due to a car accident. And now there was a possibility of losing me as well if the surgery did not go as planned. This was terrifying, but leaving them with burden seekers was even worse. In that moment, experiencing significant physical discomfort and emotional distress, I reached a pivotal decision. I instructed Valerie to proceed with the call. And with that directive, I initiated the process of severing the detrimental connections to those who had raised me yet failed to provide genuine affection. As I concluded the call, a flood of memories enveloped me. Throughout my childhood, I often felt overlooked, while Jessica consistently garnered attention. Upon graduating from college with honors, my achievement received minimal acknowledgement from my parents, as Jessica had been featured in a local commercial that same weekend. Additionally, when I married James, my parents expressed dissatisfaction regarding the wedding venue's distance from their residence. Upon the birth of the twins, they made a single visit, citing that the infants were too fussy for their preference. Throughout this experience, James has been my steadfast support. He comprehends the anguish of familial disappointment. Having faced estrangement from his own father for many years, he often expressed his desire to create a family that embodies love and support. Together, we established a nurturing home filled with joy and acceptance. However, 6 months ago, a drunk driver tragically took him from us, leaving me to raise our children alone while navigating the challenges of depression and grief. In light of my personal loss, I remained committed to supporting my parents. I even increased the monthly financial assistance when they expressed difficulties due to inflation. My intention was to exemplify the importance of familial support during challenging times. The situation was profoundly ironic. I found myself in a critical condition, suffering from internal bleeding, and yet they were unable to forego a single concert to attend to my children. Valerie returned with the information that her friend Olivia would be arriving within the hour. Valerie assured me of her exceptional skills with children. She previously worked with trauma victims at the Children's Hospital before transitioning to a private nanny role. I inquired about the cost. A hint of concern evident in my voice. Medical bills had begun to accumulate due to the limitations of James's insurance coverage. However, Valerie reassured him, stating, "Let us not concern ourselves with that at this moment. Our priority is to prepare you for surgery." However, I had concerns. Next week, I planned to transfer $2,500 to my parents. Funds I could now use for childcare expenses. This realization ignited a sense of self-preservation within me that had long been dormant. Upon Olivia's arrival, she exemplified all of Valerie's assurances. She was kind, professional, and quickly established a rapport with the twins. As the hospital staff prepared me for surgery, I made a decision. I requested Valerie to bring my phone one more time. With trembling hands, I composed 2 messages. I addressed the first letter to my bank, requesting the cancellation of all future automatic transfers to my parents' account. I addressed the second letter to my parents. I will no longer be offering financial support. My children and I deserve to be prioritized rather than treated as an afterthought. Please refrain from contacting me in the future. Amidst the pain and fear, I unexpectedly felt a sense of freedom as they transported me to the operating room. The surgery was successful, however. It left me weaker than I had anticipated. I spent 5 days in the hospital, fluctuating between consciousness and unconsciousness. And I am deeply grateful to Olivia for her exceptional support. She stayed with the twins in my hospital room during the day and took them to my apartment at night. Suddenly, my phone began to flash with notifications, revealing 27 missed calls and numerous text messages from my parents and Jessica. The majority of the messages exhibited a consistent pattern: confusion, followed by anger, and then urgent requests regarding their mortgage payment. Not once did they inquire about the outcome of my surgery or the well-being of the twins. The last communication from my father was notably significant. "It is not appropriate to sever ties in this manner. We have arranged a cruise for next month, and the tickets are non-refundable." My sister's messages conveyed a sense of genuine confusion. "My parents informed me that you were undergoing a minor procedure. What is occurring? Why is there such concern regarding financial matters?" It became apparent to me that my parents had misrepresented the seriousness of my situation to justify their decision to prioritize the concert over their grandchildren. I resolved to share the truth with Jessica, providing her with the complete account while still under the influence of medication. Her response arrived promptly. "Dear Natasha, I was unaware that the situation required emergency surgery. You had told me it was just a routine checkup, and I thought you were exaggerating. I would have taken care of the twins had I been aware. I sincerely apologize. I placed my trust in her." Jessica's upbringing in an environment that prioritized her own needs did not make her unkind. This understanding may assist her in recognizing our parents for who they genuinely are. Upon my discharge, I made several important decisions. Firstly, I engaged Olivia on a part-time basis to assist with the twins during my recovery. Secondly, I reached out to a lawyer to prepare a will that designates a trusted friend as the guardian for the twins in the event of my untimely passing, explicitly excluding my parents from this role. Third, I restricted communication with my parents by blocking their numbers, permitting only limited contact with Jessica while I evaluated her sincerity. The financial ramifications of my decision were considerable. The $2,500 monthly payment I had been making to my parents constituted nearly 1/3 of my income as a graphic designer. Without that burden, I would be able to afford appropriate childcare and potentially begin to rebuild the emergency fund that had been diminished following James's passing. That evening, as I rested in my own bed with the twins sleeping in their room across the hall, I experienced a complex mix of emotions. There was guilt, an ingrained feeling that I was somehow wrong for prioritizing myself and my children. Concerns arose regarding the management of recovery while simultaneously caring for 2 toddlers. However, an emerging sense of self-respect was also developing. At that moment, I received a text from Jessica. "I recently had a significant disagreement with my parents regarding their treatment of you. I will be staying at a hotel tonight. Could we discuss this tomorrow?" Perhaps I wasn't entirely alone in this situation after all. 2 weeks post-surgery, I was gradually regaining my strength. The incision site continued to throb painfully with sudden movements. Yet I was improving each day. Olivia had been incredibly helpful, coming each morning to assist with the twins while I worked from home. My graphic design clients have demonstrated a commendable level of understanding regarding my limited availability, for which I am truly appreciative. The opportunity for remote work has enabled me to remain close to my children. Jessica has visited on 2 occasions, providing nutritious meals and engaging with the twins. Initially, our conversations were somewhat reserved, however. She gradually shared her own experiences related to our parents. She noted one evening as we watched the twins play that you often seem to distance yourself from the family. I had not recognized that they were, in fact, driving you away. I was starting to perceive a different aspect of my sister, one that had remained concealed beneath years of our parents' influence. Although I was not fully prepared to place my trust in her, I acknowledged her efforts. Then, there was the anticipated knock at the door. Looking through the peephole, I observed my parents in the hallway. My mother was nervously gripping her designer purse, while my father stood with his arms crossed, a familiar impatience evident on his face. I hesitated, my heart racing, before opening the door slightly to speak through the gap. "What do you want?" I inquired, my voice more composed than I anticipated. "Natasha, dear, we have been quite concerned." My mother started, her overly sweet tone instantly putting me on guard. "So we called to make sure you and the twins were okay." I responded that we are fine. "Is there anything else?" My father interjected, gently pressing against the door. "It is imperative that we address the concerning financial situation we are currently facing. The bank has contacted us regarding our mortgage payment, and we have had to utilize our cruise savings to manage this obligation. The lack of consideration for my recovery and the well-being of their grandchildren, coupled with their demands for payment, is quite alarming. I want to reiterate that I am serious about severing financial ties. However, my mother implored, her voice rising in pitch. We have come to rely on that financial support. Your father and I have modified our lifestyle based on your assurance to assist us." "My assurance?" I responded in astonishment. "I transferred funds out of guilt and obligation while you were unable to care for your grandchildren during my emergency surgery." My father's expression became somber. "This situation is not equitable. Natasha, we had established plans that were of greater significance than the safety of my children and my own life." I responded, my frustration escalating. "Are you aware of what the doctor indicated? There was a possibility that I might not survive the surgery. Did you take the time to inquire?" Their silence was a sufficient response. "We made one error," my mother remarked with emphasis. "Are you truly going to impose such consequences on us? This is not a punishment. Mother, as I previously mentioned, this is the outcome. I am experiencing an unusual sense of calm. I have dedicated my entire life to seeking your approval and support. And in my moment of greatest need, you prioritized Elton John tickets over assisting me. We are your parents." My father interjected, his tone shifting to one that demanded respect. "As a fellow parent, I must express that I would not treat Ethan and Emily in the manner you have treated me. That is not something I would consider acceptable." At that moment, Emily entered the room, holding her stuffed giraffe. My mother promptly altered her approach. "There is my beloved granddaughter," she said warmly, bending down to greet her. Grandma presented gifts. Emily, unfamiliar with these relatives, retreated and glanced at me with uncertainty in her eyes. I suggested quietly that it might be best for her to leave. When I am prepared to engage in conversation, should that time come, I will initiate contact. However, the financial matters initiated by my father are no longer your concern." I concluded this statement while gently closing the door. The following morning, my parents arrived with additional support. My Aunt Patty, my mother's sister, has consistently taken on the role of the family mediator. "Natasha, let us approach this matter with reason," she suggested. Aunt Patty made her request from outside my door, but it remained closed. "Your parents are facing difficulties without your assistance. Prior to my involvement, they successfully managed their finances for many years." And I responded from behind the door. "They opted for early retirement despite being aware that their savings were insufficient." My mother's voice faltered as she spoke. We made those decisions based on your assurance of support. We may lose our home if we cancel our cruise. Their attempts at manipulation have become evident now that I have distanced myself from the guilt they have imposed on me for years. At what point did I ever commit to providing lifetime support? I had initially offered temporary assistance following their retirement. But this has somehow transformed into an anticipated permanent obligation. Dear Mom and Dad, I am currently in the process of recovering from major surgery while also caring for 2 toddlers. I must conclude this conversation now. And I walked away from the door, choosing not to respond to your continued knocking and requests. Later that day, I received a group email from my father, which was sent to the entire extended family, outlining his perspective that I had abandoned them during a time of need after they had made significant sacrifices for me. The email notably excluded their refusal to assist with the twins during my emergency surgery, instead portraying me as an ungrateful daughter who had abruptly severed ties without justification. What they did not foresee was the ensuing backlash. My cousin Michael, who resides near my parents, responded to the group, "Uncle Robert, didn't you just purchase a new boat last month? And Aunt Diana, wasn't that a new diamond tennis bracelet you showcased at Thanksgiving?" Other family members contributed to the discussion, with many reaching out to me privately to inquire about the complete narrative. Aunt Patty reached out to me directly upon discovering the truth. She expressed her surprise, stating that she was unaware of your surgery. We informed her that you were inflating a routine procedure to extort financial penalties. During this time, Jessica fully supported my position after observing our parents' behavior directly. She assisted me in formulating a concise and factual response to the family email thread, which stated, "I recently underwent emergency surgery with a significant risk of complications. My parents declined to care for my children during this period due to their concert tickets. I am currently prioritizing my recovery and the care of my twins while minimizing additional stress." The support I received has been remarkable, including home-cooked meals provided by my cousin Michael's wife. A second cousin with whom I had limited acquaintance extended her offer to provide part-time babysitting services at no cost. Jessica began spending weekends at my apartment, fostering a relationship with her niece and nephew while assisting me in my recovery. Additionally, Valerie from the hospital facilitated my connection to a support group for young widowed parents. The initial meeting took place via Zoom, allowing me to participate from home. For the first time since James's passing, I felt genuinely understood by individuals who had experienced similar challenges. Concurrently, my parents' financial situation rapidly declined. They had been living beyond their means, relying on my monthly contributions to sustain their lifestyle of travel and luxury expenditures. Jessica found out that they had taken a second mortgage on their house a year ago to purchase their boat, under the assumption that I would continue to subsidize their primary mortgage indefinitely. She expressed her shock after assisting them in reviewing their finances at their request, revealing that they have been dishonest with others. They are not in a state of destitution, rather, they have simply overspent. They would be in a better position if they sold the boat and the vacation timeshare. Their increasingly urgent voicemails and texts persisted. But with each passing day, their influence over me diminished. I was in the process of establishing a new foundation from the remnants of their betrayal, creating a genuine support network grounded in mutual care rather than obligation. 1 month following my surgery, an unforeseen development arose. My parents received a foreclosure notice. Jessica contacted me to convey this news, her tone reflecting both concern and frustration. She explained that they are currently in a state of significant distress. The bank has provided them with a 60-day period to rectify their payment situation, or they risk losing their home. I inquired about their retirement funds while gently bouncing Emily on my knee as Ethan slept. Significantly diminished. They allocated a substantial amount towards the purchase of the boat and subsequently invested the remainder in a scheme recommended by a friend of my father's from golf. Unfortunately, they incurred considerable losses. Jessica exhaled softly. "I am not suggesting that you assist them, Natasha. I simply believed it was crucial to keep you informed." Later that evening, I received urgent messages from both parents, discarding any pretense of concern for my well-being and directly requesting financial assistance. My mother's message was especially telling. We never anticipated that you would actually sever ties with us. We believed that your anger would subside and that you would resume financial contributions after a week or two. Their presumption that my boundaries were not genuine was deeply frustrating. Throughout the years of prioritizing their needs over my own and tolerating their mistreatment, it became evident that they had never shown me the respect I deserved. During this time, my life was undergoing significant changes. The support group emerged as a vital resource, linking me with other parents encountering comparable difficulties. It was through this network that I met Diana, a real estate agent whose husband had passed away from cancer 2 years prior, leaving her to raise their 3-year-old son alone. She assisted me in exploring options I had not previously considered, such as selling my undersized apartment and utilizing the equity to relocate to a more affordable neighborhood with improved childcare facilities. Additionally, I had initiated a small side business focused on designing memorial websites, inspired by the one I created for James. Several members of my support group had commissioned websites, and the word was beginning to spread. For the first time since becoming a widow, I experienced a sense of purpose that extended beyond mere survival. The disparity between my personal growth and my parents' decline became increasingly evident when they arrived unannounced at my apartment once more, this time presenting a detailed spreadsheet of their debts. We need $14 to catch up on the mortgage and avoid foreclosure, my father explained, his typically authoritative tone now infused with desperation. Without obligation, I invited them in to understand their perspective now that they were facing real consequences. I inquired about the possibility of selling the boat, gesturing for them to take a seat at my modest dining table. We would incur a loss. My father objected, while my mother quickly interjected. As for the timeshare, we have made attempts, but the market conditions are unfavorable. Furthermore, those represent our retirement luxuries. I found the situation quite amusing in its absurdity. The situation was filled with luxuries that were beyond one's financial means. With your assistance, we would be able to afford them, my father responded, his tone becoming more resolute. It is the least you could do considering all that we have done for you. I inquired softly, what precisely have you done for me? The question lingered in the air, almost as a challenge. The twins entered the room at that moment, with Ethan holding his favorite truck and Emily expressing her joy through cheerful babbling. My parents' expressions immediately softened. There are our precious babies, my mother remarked, extending her arms toward Emily, who instinctively sought refuge behind my legs. I expressed that they do not know you. You have encountered them only 3 times in their lives. You made a conscious decision to remain uninvolved, my father countered, stating that it is not fair, as we are busy individuals. Your lack of availability for your only grandchildren and your daughter during her emergency surgery, contrasted with your willingness to request financial assistance, speaks volumes about your priorities. I observed my mother's expression change, leaving me uncertain whether it was a response to genuine emotion or a calculated act of manipulation. Without your assistance, we will lose everything, she whispered. I have lost my husband, I replied, my voice unwavering. My children have lost their father. We persevered, and you will as well. 3 months following my surgery, my parents confronted the unavoidable. They had to sell their home to avoid foreclosure. Jessica provided me with regular updates on their circumstances. Although I chose to maintain a degree of distance, they successfully located a modest condominium, resulting in a significant downsizing from their 4,000 square foot lakefront residence. My father sold his boat at a loss with great reluctance, and they ultimately disposed of the timeshare for a significantly reduced price compared to their original investment. Jessica mentioned during one of her weekly visits that they are attributing their financial difficulties to you in front of others. It is quite unusual to observe. They communicate to anyone willing to listen that you have abandoned them after pledging lifelong support. I responded by suggesting they continue to express their views, feeling unexpectedly unfazed. The truth is self-evident. Indeed, my extended family largely rallied around me after becoming aware of the complete situation. Even my father's sister, who had consistently aligned with him in family disagreements, reached out to convey her support upon learning of their refusal to assist during my surgery. During this time, my circumstances have significantly improved. Diana, a member of my support group, assisted me in locating and acquiring a modest 3-bedroom house in a family-oriented neighborhood. The mortgage payments are, in fact, lower than the rent I previously paid for my apartment, and the twins now have access to a backyard for play, a first in their lives. My side business specializing in the design of memorial websites has expanded sufficiently, allowing me to decrease my graphic design clientele and concentrate on work that holds significant meaning. Olivia continues to assist with childcare 3 days a week, while I have modified my schedule to optimize my time with Ethan and Emily. Most importantly, I have established a supportive community. Upon our arrival, neighbors graciously provided casseroles. The support group coordinated playdates for our children. Jessica evolved into a true sisterly figure, rather than a rival for our parents' attention. Valerie from the hospital would occasionally visit with her children. Despite having lost my husband and severed ties with my parents, I found myself feeling less isolated than ever. 6 months following my surgery, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. I nearly discarded it without opening, but my curiosity prevailed. Inside, I discovered something I had never encountered before: a sincere apology. Upon reflection, she expressed, "Observing you create a life independently has compelled me to face some difficult realities regarding my role as a mother. I found myself feeling envious of your autonomy and strength. I felt a sense of resentment regarding your apparent lack of need for me, similar to the way I required my own mother. However, I now understand that you did indeed need me, albeit not in the manner I had hoped for. When you requested our assistance in caring for the twins during your surgery, you were extending a hand, and we did not meet that expectation. I sincerely apologize." The letter went on to detail the comprehensive restructuring of their finances. My father has accepted a part-time position at a local hardware store. They had divested themselves of the majority of their luxury possessions and were experiencing a modest lifestyle for the first time in decades. She did not seek financial assistance or even forgiveness, but rather a recognition of her apology. I presented the letter to Jessica, who expressed skepticism. "There has been ongoing discussion regarding the possibility of reaching out to you for several weeks. Initially, my father was opposed to the idea, however. I believe he is beginning to reconsider his stance, particularly in light of his recent health scare last month." "Health scare?" I inquired, feeling a sense of concern despite my reservations. "The individual is experiencing elevated blood pressure and chest discomfort, which has caused him considerable concern. He is currently adhering to a prescribed medication regimen and following his physician's recommendations." As Jessica noted, it appears that confronting the reality of his health has instilled a sense of humility in him. I was not prepared to respond to the letter immediately. I required time to process my emotions. Was this expression of remorse sincere or merely another manipulation tactic? Had there been a genuine change? Or were they simply adjusting their approach? That evening, I reviewed old family photographs for the first time since severing ties. Upon reflection, I recognized patterns that had previously eluded my understanding. My parents had consistently assumed the role of ideal caregivers, prioritizing their own needs while maintaining the facade of perfect parenthood. A year following my surgery, I ultimately consented to meet my parents at a neutral venue, a serene cafe located near my new residence. Upon their arrival, I found it difficult to recognize them. My father appeared diminished in stature, his previously confident posture now replaced by a more modest demeanor. My mother had traded her designer clothing for more simple and practical attire. The twins spent the afternoon with Jessica. At that moment, I was unprepared for a family reunion. We remained in an uncomfortable silence until my father took an unexpected action. He expressed his emotions, stating, "I have been a poor father," his voice trembling, "and an even less effective grandfather. I do not anticipate your forgiveness, however. I wish to convey that I now recognize our past actions. We have been quite selfish." My mother extended her hand across the table, nearly contacting mine, but instead gestured toward it. "We have engaged in family therapy for several months." As she explained, it was Jessica's initiative, and we were initially hesitant. But the experience has been transformative. I did not hasten to offer forgiveness or make commitments that I could not uphold. Instead, I shared photographs of the twins and provided an update on our new life. They listened attentively, refraining from interruptions and avoiding self-referential comments, which was a notable change. As we concluded our conversation, my father inquired quietly whether it might be possible in the future to meet our grandchildren. I took a moment to reflect before responding. The outcome is contingent upon your actions rather than your words. If you truly commit to bringing about a change, we can start with brief supervised visits. It is important to note that my children will only date people who respect their mother. Upon concluding that meeting, I experienced neither the overwhelming burden of obligation nor the intense resentment that had characterized our relationship for an extended period. Instead, I felt a sense of renewal. I felt the composed confidence of an individual who recognizes her value, has established boundaries, and is prepared to uphold them without hesitation. It remains to be determined whether my parents are capable of genuine change, however. I have already undergone a significant transformation, evolving from a daughter seeking approval to a mother who is resolute in her protective instincts and clear in her expectations.